Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Fever fall 84-98 in a hard fought game in New York. Unfortunately, while putting up a strong first half, they get outclassed by the stacked Liberty roster. This was not a game on the schedule that we expected a win column, especially with Caitlin Clark injured, but they did get our hopes up and had some good, at least things to build on as they go through the season in their run to make the playoffs. Of course, Jonquel Jones was back. She hit her first three of the night looking good, caused a lot of matchup problems, but ultimately, even though we were able to keep her cold at the start of the game, she then proceeded to put up 18 points, leading the Liberty in scoring. And of course, there was one funny moment where Sandy was being interviewed about JJ coming back, talking up her defense right as Aaliyah Boston cooked her to the basket for two, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, she is 100%, but she's a big impact for us with the rebounding. And okay, maybe not that play, but we'll get the next one.
Beyond that, Jonquel Jones is a force to be reckoned with. One of my favorite players in the league, and unfortunately, she played good enough tonight to help the Liberty get the W. Now, a little bit of a highlight tonight. The Fever defense was really good, especially in the early game. They were frustrating Sabrina. They had Sabrina so off that she actually got benched until really late into the third to the fourth quarter. Like she was permanently there because she wanted fouls. She wasn't getting them. She was getting cranky. She was taking uncharacteristic shots that, really weren't good shots, but she was just trying to have that special whistle and get the calls, and she wasn't getting them. So she was crashing out. However, the problem is that whenever you let up a little bit against players like Sabrina, you can't do that. And you can't play 80% of a good game, because in that 20% against players like Sabrina, she is going to go nuclear. She is going to cook you. And she did. She scored most of her 13 points in that fourth quarter run. I mean, it was just all her. She took a charge and got a turnover. She was making threes. She's taunting Coach White like down the court. Like, you can't let a player like that get fired up, and she, once she did, it was over. Now, again, in that first half, the Fever forced 12 turnovers, again smothering, playing very aggressive, intense defense. Even though they were giving up a few assignments here and there, the Liberty ended with 19 turnovers on the night, though. They definitely cleaned up in the second half. Overall, the Fever showed good signs in that first half. I think that it's a good thing to build on. Again, the intensity is important, especially against teams that aren't as stacked as the Liberty, because the Liberty, just everyone on that team can score, and we'll get into that later. But offensively, I like that the Fever pushed pace tonight. We saw it was obviously part of the game plan. A score would happen, they would push, trying to beat size with speed. Kelsey Mitchell, absolutely, again, on fire tonight. I think they need to get fire retardant nets, because she is always lighting it up. 29 points, 2 assists, 2 steals. Whenever we need a bucket, she is there finding them for us. Of course, she had the easy bread and butter buckets, but she's also hitting like the ridiculously hard shots where she's just making something happen out of nothing. And although she was benched kind of in our drought, which was unfortunate to see, she still played like 35 minutes tonight. She was practically playing the entire game. It's just, we needed her to play 40 minutes tonight, apparently, because when she was off the court, we ran into some bad rotations. We'll get into that a little bit as well. Sophie Cunningham, I mean, she is huge for us. 5 for 8 from 3. This is basically all the shots she took, and that's what we needed from her. 32 minutes. She was a threat. She spread the floor. We need this kind of performance from Lexi. We need Lexi to kind of mold into this shape. We'll talk a little bit about her going forward. Aaliyah Boston fouled out of the game. Unfortunately, a few BS calls again, kind of playing against her. Ended with 15 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Uncharacteristically, had 5 turnovers on the night. I'm getting kind of like mixed feelings with her play right now and how we're using her, because yes, I love the assists coming in from her, but on the other hand, her shot selection is changing over the course of the game, where she's hitting the jumpers that I've really liked from her, getting some good looks and some good spacing, getting some points that way. But then she's really inconsistent inside now, and against a really tall, tough team like this later in the game, we just saw her kind of shouldering in and trying to force points, and that was just a really hard thing for her to pull off. And so there was times where she was getting and ones out of it, but there's a lot of times where it's just turning into a turnover, and it was no good. Overall, I think we just need to give her better looks, use her more in the pick and roll game, because Kelsey Mitchell and her were running it really well tonight. Airy, noticeably better than Colson, like absolutely better than Colson. 5 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals on the night. She did have 4 turnovers. It was unfortunate to see. I did think that her defensive intensity, though, even though she's the smallest player on the court against a notoriously huge team like the Liberty, she is still, giving fouls when it's a bad matchup and making sure that she's just preventing the easy bucket. And then sometimes she's actually just playing bigger than she is and stopping players like Phoebus who are much bigger from scoring. And I think that that is admirable to see from her and something I like about her game compared to some of our other guards. Howard, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and 1 block. Also had 4 turnovers on the night. She is such a frustrating player because she gives us consistent points and some consistent attributes, but she tends to be good early and then she fades down the stretch. And there's been a lot of that lately in the last few games that we've had with her. It wasn't just, fatigue heading into All-Star break. We saw it in this game kind of again as well. And a lot of the woes we see from her that are pretty consistent, like travels, I wish she would clean up because they're happening once or twice a game at least. Sometimes she's not getting called for them. And then whenever she has the ball and is handling in transition, like she can run the floor, catch the ball, and score, but she is not the person that you want bringing the ball up the floor. Even when she has good handles at times, it appears on her steal from Sabrina. Like that play was amazing, but she travels at the end of it. It doesn't get called. But then other times she just is losing the ball majority of the time when she has the ball and is playing faster than she can play, really, is what it feels like. And speaking of that, Lexi Hall is kind of in the similar boat. She's, again, decent on defense, was hitting the floor a little bit tonight, and she still is scrappy and does all the things that you like to see. However, her offensive shot selection, she's shying away from taking open threes when that should be her job. She needs to play more how Sophie is doing. And when she got those moments, she made a lot of those corner threes and plays. However, the other problem is that when she's like second guessing herself on taking the three, she'll drive. And I like the confidence to drive, but there's just so many times where she was afraid or off put because she's preparing for a block that doesn't come. And then she yips like the easiest bucket under the basket. And those are the things that just kind of kill you because she could have easily had double-digit points tonight and she just kind of left them all underneath, bouncing off the rim. Colson, Dantas, they were not great tonight. Shot terribly, gave up lots of points when they were in, weren't offensive threats. Dantas because she couldn't hit a basket. Colson because she just is not taking baskets or making baskets. And so the Liberty basically just don't have to account for her and their defensive schemes, which means that we are just don't have as many good offensive opportunities to score. Michaela Timpson, Brown Turd didn't get time tonight. It's a mistake to not play KK at this point. KK needs to get time in. She needs to get experience against teams like the Liberty. I don't know how her athleticism or rebounding wouldn't have been a good fit for tonight. There's some sort of trust lacking there right now. Now, main issues for me on the night were kind of like the dead offense. This team has a lot of dead offensive players. And while we did a good job in the first half of getting good scoring groups in, there are times where like everyone is playing hot potato and it feels like we're just giving it to Kelsey Mitchell and being like, Kelsey Mitchell, please make something happen. None of us are confident to shoot it right now. And this happened multiple times in the game. It happens when we get into shot clock woes. We don't want Kelsey Mitchell head down at the end of a shot clock. We want her getting a good open look or being able to go downhill and then pitch out, which we did a little bit successfully with our offense, getting penetration, kicking out, and getting some of those open threes. But when we're not doing that, we're just kind of sitting around the perimeter chilling. Like there's just so many moments where this offense is just not looking to make a play. They're kind of like, oh, we're stuck we're dead in the water. Like, what do we do now? Let's move. And instead, you just need to constantly be moving and reading and reacting and flowing. And we are not flowing at times, and it just looks ugly. And it led to a huge drought, which let the Liberty get back into the game and go on runs and ultimately put us in the rearview mirror. Another big part that the Liberty did a good job of tonight against the Fever was mismatches. And of course, we expect that. We have Aaron McDonald. That is the weakness of Aaron McDonald. But we also just all our guards. That team is so tall that like there were just so many times where they would obviously get a switch and then they just pass around until they can get it into JJ or whoever and they score. And the Fever need to be better at recognizing that. And yes, if you're gonna switch, you need to recognize some of those matchups. And you need to be able to switch back to good matchups. You can't just switch everything and then chill, while you have Sophie Cunningham on JJ. That's like just never going to work. And we need to fix that before we can make progress against teams like this with our roster being smaller at times on the defensive end. Now, again, tough game to lose, but honestly, I liked the fight in the team, especially what we showed in the second half. We had the Liberty sweating at home, which is a tall task against a team that is this stacked. They don't even have Miesman yet, which that's going to be its own another tall giant player that's going to be so hard to stop. This team, they're going to the championship. They're too stacked to falter at this point. And the fact, though, that we were in the hunt with them, the fact that we showed that we can be in the hunt with them, I think that unless we have a player like Clark that can really put the pedal to the metal and get us a big lead and punish them when they are faltering in that first half, in the early third quarter, then we're not going to be able to beat teams like this. Hopefully, we get a competitive 4 quarters against the Aces. Is going to be showing up this Thursday. Ultimately, let me know, what was your favorite play of the game? Was there a play a player made, or even if it was a Liberty player that you liked or thought was amazing in this game? And also, do you think we're going to be able to give the Aces a run for their money on Thursday? And as always, remember, you're going to be amazing today because you are amazing. And I'll catch you next episode.